Something in the way she moves attracts me like no other lover. Something in the way she woos me. I don't want to leave her now. You know I believe in love. It might seem odd to start a story about New Orleans with the first time I smoked marijuanas, but there is an odd connection there, because the first time that I smoked marijuana was on my way into Chicago for the fireworks on the 4th of July weekend in 1988. My buddy in his orange Camaro picked me up, and we were just about into Chicago, and we were right next to the McCormick place, the convention center. Traffic came to a dead stop. A car up on the exit ramp into Chicago had caught fire, and nobody was going anywhere. So, parked as we were, missing all the fireworks, my buddy pulled out speakers, put them on top of his car, and we happened to attract the attention of some young ladies that I went to high school with. And so I went up and said hi, and it turns out they were smoking weed. And so I took my first hit of a blunt in the center lane of I-55. And the connection of I-55 with New Orleans, if you don't know, is that at the time, at least that's what my driver's instructor told me, at the time I-55 was the longest north-south interstate in America. It connected Chicago with New Orleans. And, you know, New Orleans would actually show up in my future quite quickly, because that summer I would date a young lady who would be a sophomore that fall at Tulane University, and Tulane is in New Orleans. And since I wasn't going in the Air Force until November, I just decided that I would go take a vacation before I went in and see her. And so I'm not sure exactly which of the two debates it was. I think it was the second debate, but I actually watched the Bush-Dukakis debate from the Rathskeller bar at Tulane University having a beer. I knew exactly where I was. And I got to see the city and the zoo and the French Quarter and the Garden District, and had some amazing food, and tried oysters on the half shell for the first time. And New Orleans captured my heart. I love the city. It's a beautiful place. And about 3 years later, after I got into the Air Force, I was working at Aurora, Illinois, at Copley Hospital. Aurora is famous for the Wayne's World set, if you will, which is in Aurora, Illinois. And I worked at Copley Hospital, which was where my family had worked actually for decades. And my buddy said, let's take a vacation. I had my two buddies, and so the three of us took a vacation in March of, I want to say 91, might have been 92, I think. Or was it 93? Doesn't matter. It probably does. Probably 92, I think. Yeah, I think it was 92. And, no, it's 93. Anyway, we went down to New Orleans and had a good time. And one very particular thing happened. We did go to the Madame Laveau, I believe it's called, museum. And I had just another one of these monstrous psychic moments with a young lady who worked there and was a witch. And in New Orleans, in Louisiana rather, if you're a witch, you're actually licensed to be a witch. And she had a very unusual tattoo that I wanted to know, actually I wanted to take a picture of it. So I asked her, I said, can I get a picture of this? And she said, no, but if you'd like to know about it, I'd be happy to tell you about it. And so I listened in to a very interesting story. It had Mars and I believe Venus and other constellations in there. And someday, young lady, if you're watching this, I need to know what that tattoo was again, now that I think of it. And she got done with the story, and she said, now that you know, would you like to take a picture? And the answer was no. I did not want to ruin the moment. If truly the sentiment she felt should be that it was sacred, then I shouldn't have taken a picture. She didn't want me to tell her about that. But what's interesting about New Orleans was that I returned to New Orleans again in 2018. The Libertarian National Party had their convention in New Orleans, and just before the 4th of July. And so the reason this video is called Libertarian Special Forces was because of two very specific experiences I had there. First of all, to get to the New Orleans convention, I had just, like anybody who does this at a political party, I had asked to be a delegate, and I was voted on by the crowd that I would be one of the delegates. And then once the delegates got together, we had to elect a chair, and my friend nominated me, and I ended up in a tie with the chair of the previous convention. And so he made the argument that he had been the only chair. He'd already been the delegate chair, and he was going to be again. And actually, I'd been the delegate chair in 2014 when I ran for office, because the only two people that went to the convention were me and my running mate, Joe. And so while we tied in the vote, I won the chairmanship on a coin toss. And so I was the delegate chair for the Libertarian Party of Wisconsin to the National Convention in 2018. And it was really a wonderful convention. I finally got a chance to meet my superhero, Joe Buchman. And Joe's a fairly public figure in the UFO circle, so I'll just bring him up. But Joe was actually the guy who woke me up to the UFO phenomenon and all of the odd weirdness that came with it. And when he, in the citizens' hearing, made the point, he was actually the moderator. He got to speak and make comments. And one afternoon, he made the comment, "I'm the chair of the Libertarian Party of America's platform committee, and there's a political issue here," was the point he made. And I went, he's right. And suddenly I realized I'd met somebody really connected to what's going on. And Joe's a beautiful soul. And someday when I talk about contributionism, he's a radical volunteerist. He's one of my favorite people. I also got to meet Sean Howe. I'll talk about some videos that got released the last weekend of my election, and there were two people in America got those shot. One was me, and the other one was Sean Howe over in South Carolina. But most importantly, the thing is that when you go to these things, you make incredible friends, and you have incredible experiences. And one night after the convention, we were outside on the patio smoking, and a young lady from one of the delegations said, "I just really can't wait. I would love to go to Café du Monde. It's been a dream of mine my whole life to go to Café du Monde. I can't wait. I'm so close." To which one of the other ladies out there, a delegate, I believe from California, said, "Well, they're open 24 hours a day, and they're about 10 or 12 blocks that way." And so a crew of us, I think 8 or 10 of us, got together and said, "Let's go." And as we left, one of the members, we'll call him the commander, he went back into the conference rooms or into the vendor hall, and he liberated a box of t-shirts from the chair of the party, Nicholas Sarwark. And he brought them outside. We reduced the total damage we were going to do. We took about a third of the box of shirts, and we distributed them on the sleeping homeless. And the shirts were black with big white bold letters in the front, and they said, "Statists gonna state." Because when it comes to homelessness, it's true. We keep talking about fixing it, and y'all are just we're still dealing with the same homelessness. And New Orleans, like many major cities, is suffering deeply from addiction and poverty and so many things that we could fix with psychedelic science. And so we hiked down and we handed out t-shirts. And what's really beautiful about the story is that later in the week, one of the individuals went back down to the French Quarter just to visit again before they left. And we had succeeded, at least in one case, of individuals looking at the shirt and connecting with the message that state is going to state. They're going to keep telling you they know the answer, but all they can do is state. We still have the problem. The second beautiful mission that the Libertarian Special Forces went on was that the convention ended on the 3rd of July. And on the 4th of July, most of the forces were still in town. And one of the members, the gentleman who stole the t-shirts, had brought 40 or 50 of these signs. Some said Libertarian, vote Libertarian. Some of them said end the war on drugs. And we marched down to the Frenchman, and then we went over into the French Quarter and then down to the canal. And we took these signs and we left them all over the place, hidden in little crevices. And I have no doubt that some of these are still there. So if you've seen any of these signs, then you've seen the work of the Libertarian Special Forces 4th of July mission. And we made quite the racket and just had a wonderful time spreading the idea of freedom and planting these wonderful messages about liberty and what we can do with the freedom that we experience. I want to talk about two last experiences because they're tied to this idea of freedom and liberty. We stayed over on the 5th as well, and on the 5th, I had acquired a quarter of mushrooms. And so I took the mushrooms, chewed them up, and the four of us, me and my two friends and one of their friends, went down to the Frenchman, which is this little street corner. And just a really odd story here to tell you. When I do mushrooms, I'm a much more talkative individual. I'm not talkative anyway, but I walked up to these three guys, apropos of nothing. I said, "Hey guys, my name's Bob. What's your name?" First guy says, like, Mike. Second guy is David. The third guy says they call me Cheese Curd. I said, "Hold on a second. I manage the apartments directly on the north side of the county fair of Pierce County, Wisconsin. And that county fair is held in Ellsworth, Wisconsin, which is known as the cheese curd capital of the world." Yeah. Guy's nickname was Cheese Curd. Yeah, it's, but I'll keep going on the story here because there's just one more thing I want to get to that I was saying. But the synchronicities on that whole trip were very clear. But one of the things that did happen is about midnight or so, maybe 1 o'clock, my friends wanted to stop and sit down at a bar, and I had stuck to water all night. And there's a thing about stems of magic mushrooms in that your stomach has difficulty digesting them. And my stomach had digested by about 1 o'clock all it was going to digest. And so I went in the bathroom and I relieved myself. Thank goodness. I felt much better. But, I came back out and I asked the young waitress for a glass of water. And I want to share for a moment that interaction because once I had stopped feeling so yucky inside and I realized that I had taken a very large dose of psilocybin, she brought back the glass, and I found myself in this incredibly authentic state of openness, just being able to say hi and to learn who she was. And I had questions that I just never usually intuitively had to talk to people. And that was probably the earliest moment where I really started to realize that there was a left brain dynamic to most of my interactions and experiences. The Libertarian Special Forces wasn't just about going out and putting up signs and making noise and meeting the dream of going to Cafe du Monde, but it was about getting together and creating a joyful noise and sharing an experience that at the end results in more memories that are loving and peaceful. And if you're in New Orleans and you've ever seen one of our signs, do me a favor and help me spread hope like fire. I always appreciate your time on these videos, and I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Peace.